for everything I think in marketing. You need to fake it till you make it. Yes, now you're one person, but act like you are, 300 million ARR B2B SaaS company, act like that. And if you act like that, meaning you need that.
Right.
So if you're 1%, it's not an excuse. Do it.
Welcome to the Marketing Academy Podcast by GCMO, where in every episode we sit down with a marketing expert to deep dive into a hot topic shaping the industry. I'm Yitzy Tannenbaum. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Marketing Academy Podcast by GCMO. I'm Yitzy Tannenbaum, and today we have an awesome episode with Ben Feldman, and we're going to talk about a topic that I think all of us deal with and all of us touch on, which is marketing operations, marketing tech, what that means, how to do it well. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for hosting me. What a pleasure.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about you, how you ended up in this crazy world of marketing, your experience a little bit.
Well, I had a very, I think, interesting journey, and I think as many of our colleagues, they're not real marketeers. I have a master's degree in medical sciences with clinical publications, mice and stuff. But I found it very boring. I love to talk to people, and I found myself talking to, petri dishes. So when I was finishing my master's degree, I was thinking to myself, okay, what is next? I don't want to do that. And I rolled into marketing by just sheer mistake. And I started my first job as a pharmaceutical rep in a pharma company, just doing, groundwork, knocking on physicians' doors. So I started learning, marketing and sales from really like ground up junior. And after that, I just started climbing to product marketing management. And then I actually immigrated to the States for a while, and I became their director of marketing, returned to Israel, started to do e-commerce. And from there, I just grew and grew and grew, VP marketing, CMO. And I've been doing CMO in 4 times in three companies. One of them, I did it twice. So that's kind of my journey of 17 years in 2 sentences. But I love what I do. I truly enjoy that. And I'm ready to share a couple of really interesting things about marketing ops with the listeners. So
hopefully, I'm sure they'll be interesting. There's something notorious about pharmaceutical reps. Like, I think they're the classic sellers. When you think of someone selling something, it's like a used car salesman and a pharmaceutical rep. There's something about it, right?
I really think it's just the best school ever for any marketing person to do a little bit of sales.
Yeah.
Because then, and it will really connect to the marketing ops playbook and why we actually do it. It's this collaboration between marketing and sales. And I had the privilege to be also in the other hat. And in every company, when I had to collaborate with the salespeople, I truly understood what they need, how they think. And that was, and I'm stealing the term, but it's a marketing engine. It's a sales and marketing together. And marketing operations playbook basically lives on that premises that we need to work together.
No, I also started my career in sales, and there's something about understanding a customer, understanding a deal, how a deal is built, the rigor of locking something down. I definitely think that I only did it for 2.5 years, but getting that experience in sales and seeing how to be competitive and how to offer benefit to customers, I think there's a lot of value of a marketer who dipped their toe in sales in the past.
100%.
So let's talk about why we're here today, marketing operations. And I think every company defines it a little differently. So what is marketing operations in your mind, Ben Feldman?
Marketing ops is the system that really turns the strategy into those, repeatable results, but with operational clarity. And you are right. Every company really does it a little bit differently. And we are here in Google for Startups, and if you Google what is marketing ops playbook, likely you will get 10 different answers. But we are not here to have an academic discussion and what the academic coin term. I'm here to share what I think is the bare minimum, let's say like that, and just how to do it and what it actually means. But the definition that I shared with you is a little bit like 10,000 feet, but it's the infrastructure of the people, the processes, the data, the technology, the marketing tech, and the governance.
Why is it so important to have a very clear marketing playbook?
So I think it allows a couple of things. Okay, it allows really faster launches. It allows fewer mistakes, easier onboarding for new employees. And some people start maybe even in a bootstrapping sales startup. That's amazing. But, in 6 months, maybe they will already have 20 people and 30 people. That's amazing. You need to onboard those people. And everybody needs to be aligned, correct? You can't do the broken phone and tell something else to somebody else. It what really allows scalable growth. It also aligns the entire company. Now, a marketing ops playbook, and it's really important to understand, this is not a document for only marketing people. Absolutely not. This is a document that really combines many different departments. Sales and business development and maybe clinical departments, maybe they're treating patients, many different departments. So everything has to be aligned. And I think, and the sixth point, which is really important, is the continuity. What I mean by that, CMOs, VP marketing, they come, they go, people change, okay? And the last thing you want is somebody else coming, breaking the entire system, and in 2 years' time, you look at the data and it makes no sense. And now you need to present something maybe to the board or to the CEO, and your data is not aligning. Why? Because you changed everything, because it wasn't in place. So I think those 6 points are really critical why you should have it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Also, people come and go. Things are very dynamic. So you need some kind of a pathway, a guide, if you will, to how things go. You mentioned a very important point of having, it's not a marketing document or process, but it's broader and it touches every department. Do you have any recommendations that how do I bring in other departments to be involved and be part of that process?
100%. So I will answer it in 2 stages. So first of all, I think, because like I said, it is not purely for marketing people. So, the core principles of a good marketing ops playbook, it has to be simple, clear, current, and useful. And let me explain what I mean. When I say simple, don't use, the AI slop, and just throw it inside, if you can explain something in 1 sentence, don't explain it in 3, make it short, make it simple, make it easier for people to read. It also has to be clear. And now we are connecting. Clear for anyone. And I'm just giving you an example. Just imagine you are VP marketing in a startup, and you have different investors, and new investors come, and somebody want to check, is my leadership really aligned, or is the VP marketing really knows what he's doing? These things happen. So if you give him a document that talks in marketing jargon, they will not understand. So don't talk about in this jargon. You want to say, CPL, great, right? Brackets. It's cost per lead. You want to say CAC, customer acquisition cost, amazing. But also explain what it means and how you what is your framework to calculating it, because it's different. So it has to be clear. Also, it has to be current. If you're writing this document and you say, oh, I just did it just for the rainy day, and you store it somewhere, that's not useful.
Right.
You need to really make sure that you're updating it currently, because people change, processes change, the company is evolving, marketing tech is evolving. So the cadence is a must.
Right.
And again, and useful. If you just wrote it complicated just for yourself, again, to show the CEO, oh, I've done it, and nobody actually uses it and follows.
So you were CMO 4 times. You built this out. Do you have any guidance for other leaders on how to make it? You spoke about having it current and have it useful. How do you make sure that your team is aligning with what you've built? Right? It's one thing to have it written down. Yeah. It's another thing to make sure that every single team member is aligned with that.
100%. So I'll give example, I think, from my marketing department. So, we were reviewing such, let's say like that, I wasn't calling it by name as a document, but, we were having this internal conversation, whether it's a growth department or agency, and I was telling them, hey, this is the UTM notion, and here's how to call. So, I wasn't calling it by name, but it's supposed to be coordination. And when we're going to dive into the 5 good pillars of what a marketing ops, I'm going to give examples what it means to coordinate with also other people. So, for example, in my roles, I had a lot of back and forth, with the call center, which were inside sales, and, sometimes with clinicians and stuff like that. So all these processes about, let's say, life cycle management, right, how you name the leads, how you treat the leads. So you can't just, say it by yourself to yourself and write it down. I'm calling it MQL, this market qualified lead, because I think so. It cannot work like that. You have to talk to them and get their agreement, because maybe their internal process actually is different.
Right.
So that's the beauty of, while we're saying it's a playbook, but it's a playbook for every different company, and this is important. The idea of this, I think, in this entire talk is not give this rigid, you have to follow. It's the idea, right? And adjust. And I also want to add, and I think it's very important because I had conversation actually after a couple of my LinkedIn posts regarding this topic. People wrote to me and said, but you know what? I'm a solo marketeer. We are like in a sales company. Like it sounds very lovely and very academic, but I don't have the time. And my response to that is very simple. You're right. But actually, because of that, it's even more important to you. And here's why. Because right now, you're trying to prove, the go-to-market and the velocity and stuff like that, and you're very, very busy. But then this area is going to be over, correct? And you're going to move forward with actual growth, and you're going to start moving fast. And these things, you will not touch them. And you need, again, to invest in those foundations right now. And, if you don't do it at the beginning, you will lose track of it. And also, and this is, for everything I think in marketing, you need to fake it till you make it. Yes, now you're one person, but act like you are, 300 million ARR B2B SaaS company, act like that. And if you act like that, meaning you need that.
Right.
So if you're 1%, it's not an excuse. Do it.
No, I agree. I think when you're one person, you have so much going on. So having structure, having a set kind of way of doing things or a playbook. By the way, I think this is true for your marketing department and your job, but for at anywhere in life, if you kind of have the steps that you take, if you're going to work out, what does my workout look like, right?
Yeah.
If you have a set thing of way to do things, it just makes everything a lot easier because there's a flow and you know the different stages and you know who needs to help you in the different stages. So no matter your size, I think if you have a set process and marketing operations, and marketing operations kind of forces you, like you can't not have marketing operations, even if there are no marketers in the company, there needs to be some way to get a lead and to qualify it and to lead journey, right? Like you need to have it. But I think even if not, like having a very clear process and being able to kind of work with that process is fundamental to everything. Okay, so we spoke a lot about the need of the process.
Yeah.
What's step one? Where do I start?
So, and again, we can argue until tomorrow, but this is my take on things.
I'm not going to fight you on it.
Yeah, I think there are 5 key pillars in a good marketing ops playbook that need to touch life cycle and routing management.
Okay.
Marketing tech, campaign launch SOPs, standard operating procedures, data measurement and reporting.
Okay.
And the last one is compliance and security, something that many people don't like, but I'm telling you, they are your best friends. So those are the 5 pillars. Yeah, I know many people will cringe and move uneasy in this chat, but compliance is your friend, especially if you're working in the healthcare, alcohol, whatever, insurance. They are your friends, and I'm gonna talk about it.
I got my soundbite there. Okay, start. So you mentioned, I think number 1 is the life cycle. Yeah. So let's start there.
Excellent. So we already touched that. I think life cycle routing management is the playbook of this life cycle architecture. So what it means? What are the stages of the lead journey in your company? And it can be very complex, it can be very short. It's the lead, MQL, SQL, all those abbreviations. We know that. For example, in my last company, I had something that I was calling CQL. It's a clinical qualified lead. It's irrelevant for a B2B company, but we are in healthcare, we were dealing with patients. So obviously everyone is different. So first of all is, what are the stages? Then what is the transition logic? And this is vital because, if I'm speaking, one language and the call center talks another language, it's a problem. So we need to say, how do we know when to move a person from a lead to an MQL? Okay, what it means. And another thing, and actually many people lose track of it, is actually what happens with this recycling, actually backward. Somebody was an MQL and something happened. And what happens if this lead needs to go back? What is the process? Okay, it can be a recycle lead. Lead is good, but not now. Here is an example. Somebody in my company calls and, and everything is amazing and they want the product and they have the right, insurance. They can get it. But they say, hey, I just got a surgery, so I need to wait 3 months. So the lead is amazing, correct? But it's a not now lead. So he actually goes back, correct? So that's the process and you need to align it. And what happens if it's a duplicate lead? That's also interesting. Yeah, many companies have it. We have a lead, it's 2 years old lead. He didn't want to even hear anything from us. And boom, You did great marketing, you did brand awareness, something happened, trust, maybe some amazing UGC, and it resurfaces. What are you doing with the duplicate? So this is the life cycle architecture, which is really, really important. I think another part is what I call the qualification criteria. And I think this is the gatekeepers of CRM hygiene.
Mhm.
Okay? We're all getting a lot of leads.
Mhm.
All the leads are good leads. Should everything be a lead? For example, I think everybody will understand this example. Webinar registrants, are they leads? No, they are not leads.
Mhm.
Maybe they are entering your CRM, as you can call them, maybe a prospect. Fine. Okay, but they are just registrants. They are not leads.
Ben, you're blowing my mind because every marketer knows that if I get their information, that's considered a lead. But you're saying something different. You're saying the fact that you have this person's email, and I remember I had this debate with a CMO of mine. We were at a conference, and one of the people that came to our booth was a librarian at a museum of some car company. And I told the CMO, I'm like, I'm not scanning this person. He's like, scan it, because we'll then go to the CEO and say, hey, look, we went to the so-and-so conference and got this amount of leads. And I said, but there's this woman she also was not young. This is not someone who will become we were selling security. They will not become a chief security officer anytime soon. So you're saying not every email or not every phone number that I get will necessarily be a lead.
100%. And so you don't want to spam, the views, let's say, of your sales team, correct? BDRs, SDRs, inside sales, whatever. So CRM hygiene is very important. And also, small thing, but, storage in the CRM costs money. Costs money. And if you are bootstrapping startup, even such thing actually connects to your bottom line. Small things, but they're important.
So Ben, do you have recommendations on what should be considered a lead versus what's not a lead?
Again,
every company.
But
right.
I think, lead is somebody who actually shows interest and relevant to your product.
Mhm.
Okay, like you said, maybe this librarian came to you and say, "Oh, what an amazing product! I'm so interested." So she has interest, but she's not even in the market. Like, it's irrelevant,
Right.
So it's irrelevant. So she's maybe a prospect. That's nice. She's not a lead.
So you would define it by job title, by company type, depending on
absolutely. So it can be so many criteria, but yeah, it can be even Massachusetts versus New York if you have like geographies, states and whatever.
Right. So we spoke about the life cycle architecture, what the lead journey looks like, right?
Yeah.
We spoke about, okay, now we have to define what is even qualified as a lead. Once I have that, what's next?
So, the definition is obviously with whoever handles each stage of the life cycle. So it's not only what is the name, that's just the terminology, but who handles it. So for example, you can say prospect lead opportunity is marketing. Then you say, the MQL, SQL, for example, inside sales. Okay, I, as an example, in my previous company, okay, I was generating the leads. They were going to the inside sales. They were qualifying the lead as a, sales qualified lead. And then this lead was going to our clinical team. So we had it was a clinical qualified lead.
Right.
And then the clinical team was converting that lead to an actual patient. So name, who is responsible, what are the triggers? So this definition is really, really important.
Right. So each stage needs to have a person it gets to. It needs to be routed to inside sales, an SDR, a BDR, a seller, and then as you go back and forward. But there can't be a stage without a person or a team responsible for it.
Owner and clear understanding what moves somebody from one part of the life cycle and what moves them back.
Right.
And that's supposed to be clearly written and agreeable with everybody involved in this process.
Right. So I think once we have those three stages, I think it's very clear. I think also having it written down or as a diagram, it would be very clear how essentially what the journey looks like, who owns the stages of the journey, when you go from stage to stage, when you go backwards, when you go forward. I think once you have that like very clear and quantified, I guess the next stage will be implementing it, like making it actually work.
100%, and if you work in CRM and all your processes there, one thing maybe you're using, Gongo or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the translation to the marketing tech, which is our next topic. It's how you actually make that happen.
Right.
But unless you really define And you see how important it is because you already started to talk to different departments that are involved in this life cycle management. Maybe there's also customer success involved, and they need to make sure that even after the implementation of the SaaS, over the patient, they also need to talk. So who are responsible for this entire life cycle marketing, what it means, and unless it's written and everybody agrees, there will be loops.
And it needs to be very clearly set and then be reflected in the marketing tech. And so maybe let's double click on that. I know this topic will probably scare a few of our listeners, especially those who are not in the marketing operations field. So how should we approach? Okay, I have a process. I think building a process is one thing, and there are challenges, I think, just like political or internal challenges there. I think implementing and building it out is it's a complex thing to do. I think there are very few people who could do it well. So how would you approach building that stack?
So, I think that's another podcast, right? I'm telling you the truth. It's a huge, huge topic, but obviously, when you have more money, you can go to better solutions.
Yep.
When you are bootstrapping or whatever, you can be a little bit more nimble. Our Israeli great state of mind, we know to do a lot from not a lot, so, I say like in startups, you need a lot of creativity because you don't have a lot of budget. That's the end of the story. So obviously, hundreds of marketing tech out there.
Right.
So you need to define, obviously, what is the goal, what is the purpose, what is your budget, and stuff like that. But when I actually talk about this pillar of marketing tech, I'm not talking about finding the right tool and implementation. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about, let's say, like maybe a glossary of what you have. Okay, and this is important.
So it's essentially the categories, right? Like
exactly.
So what category, right? You won't obviously, you give me an example of products, but for I think each category will have the 2 or 3 leaders and then many.
100%, and then you choose whatever you need.
Right. But what are the main categories I need? And by the way, this will breathe life into the first stage that you spoke about, right?
So good marketing ops obviously needs to explain what is your working operating system, for example, because this is, I think, the basic. How you communicate. It's the Slack. It's the, I don't know, maybe using Trello, Monday.com, Asana, whatever. What is the working operating system? How do you keep data and recording? What is the type of the CRM you are using? CRM, data enrichment tools, if you use them. Lucia, Zoom Info. For example, I'm coming from health. We were using sometimes Definitive Health, which you buy data about prescription patterns, stuff like that. Marketing automations.
Right.
Our B2B friends that are using ABX, Sixth Sense and stuff like that. What are the AI tools you are using? And actually, I think the AI bucket is very important because there's so much, and unless you're going to put this on paper, you're going to get in trouble. I'm going to touch and explain what I mean. What is your CMS?
Mm-hmm.
And I think is important. And how do you do attribution, our calculation, stuff like that?
Right.
So I think what is the purpose of explaining what is the market management in this playbook is one thing, because there is such a thing that's called tool sprawl, and it is a nightmare. And here's an example.
By the way, I think every single marketer has it.
Exactly. Because, for example, you use one social platform, and then finally you have some budget and you're hiring a proper social marketer, and she comes, she, and they love to use, not Hootsuite, Sprout Social.
Right.
And they open Sprout Social, but they didn't close Hootsuite. And stuff like that. And so then you have couple of tools that are doing absolutely the same.
Right.
Some of them that aren't used. Okay. For example, I had it. We found that we were using Calendly, but also Acuity scheduling, and they got like, why? We'll just double paying for the absolutely same thing.
Right.
So,
by the way, Ben, even if that doesn't happen, you mentioned 8 or 10 categories, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because your video is being hosted on something, and you're doing webinars on a different platform. The amount of logins that a marketer has.
100%. So, for example, so you need to clearly write, what is the tool, what is the category, what is the purpose of that tool?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to have the purpose,
right?
Okay, when you open it,
mm-hmm.
Okay, how much do you pay per month, annually? It's very important.
Yep.
Because one of your touch point is always with the CFO or the finance, and sometimes bad things happen and you need to cut costs. It is what it is. So you can go and say, okay, here's what I can cut and not. And sometimes we can clearly just show this and say, look, there is nothing more to cut. We are just down to the bare minimum. Like we can get rid of the CRM, correct? Like we can get rid of phone call system for the reps. So it's very important to have it written down. So and yes, and also which is very important, who gets what type of access to each platform? Everyone has to be an admin? Of course not.
Of course not. Yep.
Who needs to be the admin? Who needs to be, an agency?
Right.
PR agency. They need to be an admin in your GA4? Of course not. So it's also very clear to understand that. And also, what's very important for each of them, who is the business owner? For example, we're talking about Sprout Social. My director of social media used Sprout Social. I never saw that. I didn't care. She was the business owner.
Right.
Perfect. But we know. And also the technical owner. And what happens if something breaks down? We need to fix something. For example, Monday.com. I love Monday.com. I use it for many, many companies, but it's sometimes complex. And there was one point of contact in the entire company working across everybody.
Right.
If I had an issue, I knew who I'm going to.
Did you always own Monday? Because I think
No.
because right, the thing with a tool like that is that it's usually company wide.
Right? Yeah. But 100%, I think from my experience, and I worked with Trello, I worked a little bit with Asana, and I'm not getting paid, to promote Monday. I just want to say, but for me to do marketing ops with my team and collaborate with other teams on projects and launch, for me it was very, very easy to use. So that's my preference. But I know people use Asana with amazing results. Everyone has their own choices.
Right. So by the way, I've never used Monday. I've always used Asana. It's just the companies I worked for. I will say something really interesting. I spoke to someone from Monday who told me that their number one buyer are marketing folks.
100%.
I guess for this reason. And we have so much going on.
Exactly. Because for example, if you're doing right now a conference or something like that, in each conference you have sometimes 50 different, sub items, and try to coordinate. So that's easy.
Right.
Now, before we're gonna close the marketing tech, I'm gonna give one golden tip. Okay, one golden tip. Because again, we have so many logins. So, like we said, sometimes people get fired or get hired or whatever, and you want this ease of continuity, correct? So obviously the best way to do it, don't put it on your own email at the company. Do it, for example, marketing at.
Yeah.
So it's easy. And I also failed in that. Yeah. So I had when sometimes I was opening on my own, but most of the things we really try to do it, for the marketing. It's not always the case. Sometimes when you do like social accounts, you can do that, fine. But whenever you can, wow, that's going to save you so much headache, not for you, for the IT. And IT is your second best friend in the company, beyond compliance and, and security. So think about them as well.
So it saves time, but also saves a ton of money. I've done this at places where, licenses were a lot and there are 10 people in marketing. If they all use the same, the thing is, what was really funny is whenever it was a new device, it would like send a code to the email, and marketing we would all get the email. So every few days we would get just a random code, and we knew someone was relogging in. So it's a great tip. Okay, so obviously I agree. We could probably talk about. We could have a full, not episode, but a full podcast talking about each category. What are the options, the pros and cons of each? I'm sure. Also marketers tend to start liking or disliking different tools, and they play around with them, and they kind of have their favorites, which is always interesting because a new person comes in and they have what they like, and with time you start learning different platforms. So it is good fun. But putting that aside, okay, I have a process, I have my tech. What's next?
So the third pillar is obviously the campaign execution standard operating procedures. Okay, because this is important. Especially, the bigger you grow, it's very important because you will have, you have those product marketing and brand campaigns and whatever. And eventually, you need to have some kind of a standard campaign intake process, okay? Which talks very clearly about the objectives of the campaign. I think it just makes sense, correct? Which is the target audience. I don't know many people who have one ICP, one ideal customer profile.
Right.
We have and that's important because sometimes, you have somebody maybe a little bit junior and they rent and they do this entire planning and that's the wrong ICP, and so wrong messaging, wrong everything. What are your success metrics? I think it's very, very important, correct? Whatever, it can be registrant, it can be cost per lead, whatever, but something to be a northern star in that campaign. What is the priority metrics? Okay, is this, for example, revenue driver versus brand awareness, stuff like that, and launch date.
Right.
And this is very important because and again, my example, sometimes I work, with the sales in the States. It's Friday, 5 p.m. I'm getting ready for, Shabbat dinner and stuff like that, helping the family. And I'm getting an email. Oh, Tuesday morning, we have a pop-up event and I need A, B, C, D. Like, okay, good luck. So it doesn't make any sense. Like, we can't do that.
Right.
We can't. So it's not to put blame on somebody else, but it's very important. They need to understand they can't, give a launch date that makes no sense. So, those are the standard operating procedure. And again, other parts of the company need to understand that too. It's not only internal, it's also external.
You probably have budget in there too, right?
100%.
Right.
What is the budget, of course. And following that, you need to have your QA, this pre-flight checklist. And, even the simplest things, is the ICP correct? Is the messaging correct? And then the technical stuff, are all the links are working and they're working correctly? If it's an email campaign, do you have, all your legal stuff and your unsubscribe and stuff like that? So, those basic things, and I will not go into it because every campaign is very different,
Right.
but you really need to think, what is the bare minimum QA that you have to do? Of course, you need to trust your people. You need to, and if you are not the one who is doing the QA, maybe it's the head of growth, head of performance, whatever. But somebody needs to own it.
No, so every campaign has to have, and I agree, a very, very clear plan of what that looks like, right? So, what are the goals, the objectives, the ICP, and just kind of list down everything you need. So when you're going to a campaign, you're not just throwing money out there because, hey, we want to go to this event or we want to run this webinar, but why are we doing it? What are we looking to achieve? What are the KPIs? What are we expecting? What are the goals? Maybe looking at past campaigns and comparing. So definitely need to do that.
And some additional QA points, I think also very important, again, just to avoid some trouble, is also making sure that all the data flows correctly to your CRM, BI, Google Analytics, stuff like that. I think it's the best way also to find if you have not only mistakes, maybe something in your connectors have broken, Zapier, Make, whatever. So I think it's very important. Does your form work, stuff like that? And the most important, again, compliance. If you work with compliance,
right?
For example, healthcare is having compliance. You need to make sure that you're using approved language, because if you go out with non-approved messaging, it can get you and the company in a lot of trouble.
Ben, in 2026, every marketer deals with compliance. We're in the age of GDPR and all that fun stuff. So don't worry. I don't think there are many people who will skip over the compliance section. But I think you mentioned something really important that maybe you should have spent more time on marketing technology. Integrations between the tools becomes super important, right? A lot of times when I'll choose a tool, it's less about the tool functionality and how does it integrate? How does it provide the data into our CRM or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will even add to that. So again, we're talking about compliance. But for example, for somebody who spent a lot of time in healthcare, not only I had to find tools that are, doing what I want to do and have good connectors or whatever, but they also had to be super secure. HIPAA compliant, which means, HIPAA compliant is all those laws, how we secure patient information.
Right.
So even, for example, a couple of years ago, choosing a CRM for a healthcare company was a nightmare. You only had two choices. You only had Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. The only two HIPAA compliant. You couldn't go to like HubSpot, for example, which is quite nice. You can say, oh, HubSpot, so many connectors, it works well with other systems. I couldn't do that.
It wasn't compliant. No.
It wasn't compliant. So I had to go and to take whatever I had with their really crappy marketing automation platforms and try to work my best with what I had, So those kind of things also go into considerations when you choose your marketing tech.
Right. Interesting.
But, and I think in 2026, it even goes, I think, to another level. Does it connect to good AI tools, AI agents, for example? And
interesting.
It's a very interesting point.
So let me ask you something. Would you look at that more than you look at, does it have AI built in?
So that's the beauty of things. A lot of companies already realizing, like, we need to have a lot of AI already inside.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just, just product-led marketing, per se. Now, but when you don't have it, yes, I would like to understand what at least the key tools, can I connect them? Okay, and we see a lot of stuff like shout out like to Tofu AI and and all those connections with NHN stuff like that, because in the age of 2026, obviously AI doesn't lead marketing operations or whatever, but marketing guy, whatever, who knows how to work with AI and knows how to integrate them and to speed things up in whatever tool it may be. It can be a social listening platform, can be a CRM or data. They're going to win and they're going to save time. So absolutely. So when I go and I look, I look for security, SOC 2, HIPAA if I need, but then I also look into all the integrations, API, stuff like that. And for example, the beauty of things make Zapier, the ultra connectors, they already 2 steps ahead. At least I see that. They integrating more and more AI and AI agents that seamlessly can integrate to older tools. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to follow and to see what's going to happen.
I agree. And it's something that, yeah, I never considered that aspect, but you're right. And when looking at marketing tools today, it's something that you can't neglect. So we spoke about campaign execution and kind of having that plan. What's next?
So data in, we need data out,
Right.
Correct? So the next thing is data, is the measurement and the reporting, okay? So obviously without data, we're blind. So it goes without saying. So I think the first thing we need to understand is the what I call the data governance. In most companies, okay, you have multiple buckets of where data goes. You have Google Analytics, you have the CRM, you have whatever, Looker Studio, or your type of BI. Let's say Tableau. I'm just throwing in there, okay? No way they are all aligning. Just no way, because of different syncing modes or whatever. And sometimes something will break down eventually. So you need to work with your analytics team, your BI team, or whoever, and to decide what is the golden truth. When something goes, so what is the golden truth? So if I want to say, okay, I had customer acquisition cost of X, from where I'm taking those numbers? Is it from the BI? Is it from Google Analytics 4? Is it from my own Excel calculations in the CRM? So unless you do that and you align, you, the CFO, you will all talk different numbers because they will all look at different aspects.
Right.
So it's the data governance is the golden record rule. It's very important for you to decide. The next thing, we say data in, data out, but garbage in, garbage out. And you also want to ensure that your data that is being collected throughout the time is standardized, correct? So even a small thing like, wrong UTMs, okay? You need to decide how you call your campaign, how you call your UTMs. And this is vital because marketing departments tend to change marketing agencies. Marketing guys, performance, growth, they come, they go. Everyone loves to do something else. But no, if you right now need to pull 3 years of data, try to consolidate when, you have completely different namings, of course it's impossible. Garbage in, garbage out. So that's very, very important. And so that's the standardization of it. And things like, you're working in the States, New York or NY.
Right.
And because then the BI team needs to know, okay, so if you want to know what is the cost per lead in New York, what should I pull? NY or New York? So those are the type of things that unless you all agree, you will have a lot of noise, correct? A lot of noise.
A lot of marketers have to deal with like the cleaning of a database. Like the databases are, especially like when you'll come, at least from my experience, you'll come into a new company and it's just a wild west. And marketers will spend months or weeks to really go through everything and start cleaning it up. And
so if the data is collected and stored and reported, in this unstandardized wrong way, then you have issues on reporting. And I think the last piece of it is the reporting. Okay, is what you see.
Right.
And even there, we need to think about at least 3 tiers. Is how I see it. Okay, you have the tier 1, which is the business impact. So, for example, if the CEO, the CFO, the board, whatever, they don't give a crap about your email opening rates, correct? They don't care.
Right.
It's absolute noise. They don't know even what to do with it. So if you're building a report with your BI team, analytics team, whatever, think about what they really care. It's the, number of patients, it's the time for whatever. What is the acquisition cost, what they care. And talk to them. What do they need to see? I think that's the tier 1. The tier 2 is the marketing agent. is what is important for you as a marketing team and the sales team. And that's the life cycle, correct? Is the pipeline, how many we have in each pipeline, what is the call, what are the conversion rates? So it helps you and them talk the same language and understand, are there issues, are there problems, are there improvements? And the tier 3 is the marketing stuff. It's just, it's the opening rate and the click-through rate. It's for you to see how the campaign actually works.
Right.
So don't mix up, because too much info is just noise. So that's how I look at reporting, and I think it's important work.
Right. So yes, definitely having it's in my mind, it's probably one of the biggest challenges a marketing operations professional would deal with is ensuring a clear database and reporting on it in a effective way. It sounds easy when you put it, hey, this is what you need to do. But when it comes to practice, because of the quantity, especially like in B2C world is a whole different, but even in B2B, we're talking about hundreds of thousands to millions of data points and across different tools. So managing it and making sense is a whole nightmare. And I think our final stage, we could finally get to the compliance, governance, security, all that fun stuff that we're all looking forward for.
Yeah.
And we want to know, why is it so fun then?
Well, it's, like I said, compliance is not sexy. Security is not sexy, but it's absolutely crucial. Well, obviously, again, all marketeers in 2026, they deal with some type of compliance. GDPR, California laws, HIPAA for healthcare, the Israeli new cookie, everybody deals with something.
Right.
So obviously, you need to deal with it. You need to understand that, and you need to adjust. You need to understand, really understand different, even sometimes state laws.
Mhm.
If you work again in the States, sometimes Massachusetts has some type of advertising laws that California doesn't have, stuff like that. So you have to understand that. You have to put it on paper, and you need to work with. Great if you have a compliance department in your company. If not, you have maybe an advisor, maybe.
Right.
And I want to say loud and clear: lawyers are not compliance. A lot of companies work sometimes with lawyers. Lawyers' job is to keep you safe and out of the courtroom. So they go as strict as white as possible.
Right.
So lawyers doing compliance is where marketing dreams go to die. Okay? So, but the second you start to work with a really good compliance person, they understand the risk, but they also understand the business goal. And they are the bridge. And they always can find, maybe it's not the whitest thing, maybe it's in the gray area, but it's all about risk management and allowing you to do more of what you need without just, nope. Lawyers are a nope thing.
Yeah.
Compliance is at least, let me see what I can do. So if somebody doesn't work with compliance yet,
I think, Ben, our listeners will be divided into two. There's some that are in and I just, my experience, I kind of been in both industries. There's some industries that are very highly regulated, and I mean, healthcare is the top of the pyramid, but there's some industries that are super, super regulated and have very clear laws, and there's usually a full-time or a team of compliance people that you could work with. But then you have some of our listeners who are in industries that are not that regulated, and they probably would think that this is a little foreign to them. But when I worked in those companies that compliance is a huge issue, then yes, it's something that a marketer needs to think about, deal with. And a lot of the things that we do and actions that we take will be defined or influenced by the regulations and what is allowed and not allowed.
100%. And I just want to add, first of all, of course, I agree with what you said, but even with the folks that are not working those regulated, but like we said, they're just the bare minimum for anyone. If you are even a web developer freelance and you have your own website and you're doing mailing, you already have compliance stuff. You have your unsubscribe buttons and your cookies. So basic things you need to know. We already also mentioned, those access control. I think we talked about it when we talked about the MarTech. I think it's very important, so you need to work with your IT and to understand. I think one more thing is more on the security side, is the vendor risk assessment. Okay, again, especially when you guys, like somebody works in a startup and you just want to run,
Right.
Oh, great AI tool, next shining object, next one, and you just open and you click and you give them access to everything under the sun, including your CRM and stuff like that. But did you assess the risk? They're connected to you. So that's something so important. And I had many tools that I really, really wanted. And our CISO said, man, no, there's no SOC 2. They don't have anything even basic. So that means ransom attacks, that means whatever it means. So assess your vendors, including agencies.
I've been on the flip side of filling out those questionnaires, but that's a good point for, I'm sure bigger companies obviously have something very clear and established, but if you're a small startup, you should have a questionnaire. I'm sure there's some templates you get offline. Make sure that the vendor that you're choosing is secure and does live up to the standards, because if it doesn't, it could be a huge problem. So Ben, we spoke about the 5 stages of marketing operations. We spoke about the life cycle architecture, building out those steps. We then spoke about the qualification. We then spoke about the technology involved in building them out. We spoke about planning out a campaign and campaign execution. We spoke about data, reporting, and then compliance and security. We're running, time flew, and a lot of really cool insights. I'm sure a lot of companies are doing some and not all. But you've been doing this for a while. You've had experience building them out. I'm wondering if you have any good stories or cases where this really saved your ass and worked for your benefit, having a very clear and built out plan.
I will give an example, which is actually, like an easy example.
Right.
It's, for example, how I would communicate, with the SDRs team that were on the ground in the US. So, they came to me and said something very simple, obviously, what the salespeople want? Bonuses, correct, for the sales. Now they say, oh, we are having, let's say, pop-up events at a school, whatever, and somebody grabs, I don't know, a flyer, and they convert. I want to get paid. Okay, how do we do that? So here's where I think everything kind of combines together. So we're talking about the first thing. I understood what we need to do. We needed to do the attribution. So number one thing is obviously, okay, we need to do proper UTMing. So if a lead is generated, then they go to my CRM, and what type of life cycle, is it a lead, is it a prospect? So we had to understand all of that aspect and map it, and then say, okay, well, so what is the technology? So I went to so first of all is the offline. So they have flyers, something like that, and I didn't have a lot of money, so you don't want to, print 500 different flyers for whatever 100 SDRs. So we said, okay, we're gonna do a custom QR code, a unique dynamic QR code. Okay, I use QR Tiger, for example, really nice, pretty cheap. So I was taking this properly named UTM that I created for each SDR, created this QR code, okay, and we designed a sticker, with the QR code, with their name, with their phone, stuff like that. And everything was through Monday.com, is a process. So with one click, I created also automations, and it was going eventually from one board to a board that I was sharing with a third-party vendor, which is a printer, which was validated by security. And they were printing and sending to their home. So everything was just automated. Now we also have digital, okay? And if somebody, let's say, calls or visiting a landing page, so also they have a process. Their unique phone numbers. I was using, for example, CallRail, to get proper unique numbers. So full attribution.
Right.
So,
by the way, Ben, when you spoke about this process and specifically about measurement and data, the first thing that came to mind is sales and how are we look, even marketing, right? A lot of marketers' bonuses will be based on MQLs, SQLs, right? And how we define that will grossly change the results. And
Yeah.
when the CEO is coming to you as a CMO and saying, hey, what are our targets? How are they growing? How we define those criteria, what is an MQL, what is an SQL, what is a lead, what isn't a lead, how that's, and if we define it wrong, or if we define a lead in a way that doesn't work, then the team will chase off after something that doesn't really influence the business.
That's 100%.
So I think that's a big part of why it's important to well define the different stages and build them out. So
it's kind of it's a small example, and it's it's not a complicated example, but it just shows almost all the steps that were inside. And we're talking even about reporting. So for example, obviously you never can double measure something. So we had sales of those SDRs from those QR codes or whatever. But I was also interested to know, okay, but maybe I can also attribute it somehow to marketing. So I worked also with the BI team, and they could tell me if the lead was originated before the sales in the CRM through marketing. So I wasn't counting that for my customer acquisition cost, but I was calling it attributed sales, assisted sales. So, it's kind of everything that we talk about in one use case, it's the compliance piece, it's the data, it's the measurement, it's the how we call the UTMs, it's the technology, and talking with the sales team, talking with the call center, and everybody were aligned what the hell it even means.
Right.
So simple use case.
This makes sense, and I think this episode will meet people in different places, right? Some people will have a very set process. I think those in smaller companies who are just starting out, they'll need a little help, or maybe have some of these things built out. So I think building out how you've done it, and it's obvious that you've built this machine multiple times. You know what works, you know what doesn't work. I think is really helpful to either completely build from scratch or improve what we already have. Ben, this was super, super interesting. Before we go, I want to thank Google for Startups, who hosted us today. They're a great place if you have a startup and you're looking for a place to get it started. I would recommend you build out your marketing operation processes, but also you could also check out Google for Startups to get support from them. This podcast is made possible by the wonderful women who produce and edit it, Rotem Simon, Shahar Kedar, and Atara Braun Levy. Thank you so much to them. Thank you to GCMO, who do all the backing and all the fun stuff behind it. If you like this episode and want to learn more, please subscribe, like, share, comment, etc. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you so much for hosting me.